Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never practice nunchucks in a crowded room. Never eat chole before a road trip. Always take your shirt off before you iron it. Don't take a call near a swimming pool. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The C word that just popped up in our national headlines should have been quite routine in the normal course. This is census, C for census. As we know, however, these haven't been particularly routine times in our political history. In the past decade, many old rules have been reinvented, some buried, and many put in cold storage. Many of these pertain to sources of data. One of those was the decennial census. The news that Modi government is finally making preparations now for the long-awaited, long-delayed decennial census of 2021 leads us also to examine a larger reality, represented by three more C's. If this government is Modi 3.0, we could call this its 3C trap. The first indication of its significance is that the census is finally being planned. The three C's are, of course, caste, coalition, and the constitution. For a decade, the Modi machine could take all three in its stride. The caste-based parties in the Hindi heartland had been decimated, and the rise of Narendra Modi was held out as the Bharatiya Janata Party's commitment to backward and lower castes. The BJP fielded a large number of OBC candidates. It gave us an OBC prime minister and a Dalit president, followed by one from a tribal community. That is the current president, Draupadi Murmu. The Congress had never given Indian non-elites such wide and powerful representation all in one decade. That's true. The Modi-era BJP had the caste and the underclass issues safely locked in its electoral closet. That Modi era no longer exists. This election changed all of that. To understand the return of caste, witness the double quick retreat on the lateral entry into civil services. 63 officers have been recruited through the same route over the past 5 years, and protests, if any, were tossed with contempt. They made no difference. Modi government went on nevertheless. This time they made a retreat. Just a few tweets from opposition leaders, especially Rahul Gandhi, now resulted in an immediate, even panicky withdrawal. This summer's setbacks in Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan and Maharashtra, the BJP think tank has concluded, were mostly caused because of the old, wide, scheduled / backward caste coalitions coming back together alongside the minorities, particularly the Muslims, actually mostly the Muslims, because Christians are too few. The Muslims, the BJP can and will do nothing about. If at all, you've seen its key leaders, especially chief ministers, targeting them even more aggressively, doubling down on polarization, hoping to bring the Hindus back in its own large political tent or electoral tent. The last thing it wants to be doing now is to let the resurgent opposition build further on the theme that the BJP and Hindutva forces cater to upper caste elites, and by implication, not to all Hindus, because the BJP must keep all the Hindus together. Lateral entry will make a comeback, I'm sure, but now with pre-allocated quotas. This will beat its very purpose and take away the pick and choose discretion that the Congress, non-BJP coalitions and even the Janata government of 1977 to 79 used in the past. That will now be gone. That's lost for now. So smudged this is now that even the prospect of getting, say, a finance secretary from outside, as a minority government under P.V. Narasimha Rao did with Montek Singh Ahluwalia, is now over. The BJP is so scalded by the caste cauldron that it won't touch that hot pot even with gloved hands anymore. That's why we need to watch the progress on the census very, very closely. Since our decennial census started in 81, it's been held dutifully every decade. In 1941, it was sort of held only partly, only with 2 or 3 questions, but there was a good reason. A world war was on. The 2021 edition was delayed because it was the year of the second COVID wave, or what is also known as the Delta wave. The fact, however, is that even until COVID came, there wasn't even a rustle in the census machinery. You can't suddenly say, I will start holding the census next month. Preparations have to start much earlier. We didn't see that. It was widely believed that the Modi government would take its time. Just about 10 months before this general election, the government inaugurated with much fanfare the new census office building, the Janganna Bhavan. You can see it across the road from New Delhi's familiar landmark, the Taj Mahal Hotel on Mansingh Road. But while the fancy new Bhavan came up, there was zero buzz that a census was on the way. It was widely accepted that the BJP does not feel particularly bound by the idea of following the British era tradition of a decennial census. It could wait for a more convenient time or for a more opportune time. Opportune in this case was a time closer to the next deadline for the delimitation of parliamentary constituencies. That was the key thing. Let's try, therefore, and understand it better. Delimitation was seen as too divisive an issue to touch by previous governments, given that population growth patterns vary greatly among states, especially among the coastal, economically, socially progressive states, including Punjab, by the way, and the Hindi heartland on the other side. A delimitation at any point will result in the relative share of the states with the higher birth rates going up and that of the states more responsible on population growth decline. This could create instability, regional rivalries, and centrifugal pressures. That is why successive governments have been kicking this can down the road. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the last. In 2021, his government moved a constitutional amendment pushing delimitation by 25 years. It was then to be based on any census held after that, or say after 2026. It is possible and plausible that the BJP would have liked to wait until when it had its third majority and was probably headed for a fourth to hold the census and then push a delimitation. That story ended this 4th of June. Railroading a politically fraught delimitation is no longer an option. It makes no sense, therefore, to delay the census forever and be asked embarrassing questions, especially in Parliament. In the last session, Rahul Gandhi asserted that he will make sure a caste census is held within this house. And here was the BJP not even talking about the long-delayed 2021 census. That was now politically unsustainable. And don't be surprised if the census forms now also come with that caste box. I will in fact be surprised if it doesn't. It will be a point conceded to Rahul Gandhi and his allies. The other side of the coin is one of the main opposition weapons or talking points in their political campaign would then be rendered obsolete because the government's holding a caste census. The other two C's besides caste are hyphenated with the first. It was caste compulsions that alarmed the BJP's coalition partners on lateral entry, for example. That's how the coalitions came in. There is no way the two Bihar partners, for example, can expect to survive the state elections next year if their government is seen to be finding a way around reservations or sidestepping reservations. Eknath Shinde's Shiv Sena may be silent, but he's more paranoid, having suffered so severely in these Lok Sabha elections. Bihar BJP partners did all right, but not in Maharashtra. And finally, the Constitution. The Prime Minister was the first to acknowledge the new reality when he bowed to it as this Lok Sabha was first convened. Until this election campaign, there had been boasts, many boasts and arguments, newspaper articles by responsible people, authoritative people, talking about major amendments once the target of 400 seats or thereabouts was achieved. Besides others, even the BJP candidate in Ayodhya had spoken about it. There were debates also on whether the Supreme Court's 13-judge constitution bench order, the old order, defining something called the basic structure and holding it sacrosanct, was relevant anymore. among the deprived castes and classes, this was read as an attack on reservations. Of course, the opposition spread this vigorously too. And why would they? They were in the contest and they will make use of any ploy that was available to them. The upshot now is that the constitution has been elevated to an unalterable scripture, which it was never meant to be. That was not the intention of the founders or the authors of the constitution. The constitution needs to be amended from time to time as the economy, society, and politics evolve in our country. It has been amended 106 times already. The history of these amendments, however, would show that mostly these were carried out with some consensus, with a wider agreement, after taking at least some of the opposition on board, or in fact, in most cases, almost all of the opposition on board. Is the Modi government in its third edition willing to do so? Without consensus, it will be too scared to touch the constitution. The final point then, these three C's will drive the BJP to a fourth: consensus. And if it isn't willing to embrace it, it will be a setback to governance.